Garen laughs with relief after being rescued from danger. A masked stranger and Garen discuss surviving deadly dungeon. Payment is offered as thanks for the rescue. Garen introduces himself and questions the stranger's presence here. The masked figure reveals they are searching for something specific. Garen wonders if they seek rare materials or treasure. Garen's expression shifts with sudden realization. The stranger's answer shocks him. They're hunting for a corpse. Garen repeats the word stunned by what he's heard. The masked figure explains, this is simply their work. Garen reacts with disbelief at such an unusual profession. He asks if the stranger carries bodies for a living. The masked character's eyes narrow with quiet intensity. Confirmation comes, this is indeed what they do for work. Garen panics as they prepare to leave immediately. Desperate, he grabs hold and begs to be taken along. He offers everything he is terrified of being left behind. His pleas grow more frantic and desperate by the second. The stranger regards him with an unreadable, steady gaze. Garen ends up riding on the stranger's back. He remarks the journey is surprisingly comfortable and smooth. The masked figure continues forward without breaking stride. Garen asks if they need to stop and rest. He casually mentions a name, Hozan, to the stranger. The stranger corrects him sharply. Call me Nimue not girl. A weary smoker learns his grim profession, corpse searching. His companion offers an ultimatum, accept the work or leave. Two masked figures emerge from the shadows, their faces hidden. One figure turns away, dismissing the other's concern. The man questions why he chose such dark work. A lone figure sits against stone, reflecting on their past. Two travelers move through darkness, discussing payment and isolation. A legendary adventuring party stands ready for battle. They discuss the horrors awaiting them. Plague, undead, unknown contagion. Someone clutches a reward, understanding the danger's worth. A figure walks forward, accepting the grim reality ahead. Through ancient ruins, they note Nimue's unsettling normalcy. The man recoils at being called ordinary. He spirals, imagining how corpse handlers are perceived. Then he mutters an apology for his outburst. Someone wades through water, dismissing the tension. The masked one explains such assumptions come with the territory. A voice commands someone to shift aside. The masked figure asks if they're resting. The answer is no. A massive clawed hand emerges from the depth. A colossal reptilian beast appears. The masked one calls it a guest. The man panics at the creature's size. His companion identifies it as the level's greatest threat. Escape is urged, but the man knows it's futile. The beast strikes. The masked warrior evade masked. Figure readies their blade, declaring they'll face this alone. A monstrous face demands attention, speaking of urgent business. The reptilian creature shrieks, violently enraged by the confrontation. Jaws full of razor teeth snap open in a terrifying roar. A scarred warrior stares intensely, ready for the next strike. The defeated beast collapses heavily onto the stone floor. A dark-haired man reacts with shock fist clenched tightly. Blood-splattered fighter mutters, amazing, wiping his face calmly. A blade drips crimson. The battle finally concluded here. Someone questions whether they should dissect the fallen creature. A companion asks what exactly is happening right now. A claw suddenly lunges forward. What is happening here? A character recoils in disgust, holding something grotesque tightly. Two figures stand together, one with a horrific face grin. This person is a revelation dawns upon the searcher. The search target lies broken. A woman with a ruined face. Flashback. Ashley, a cheerful, hardworking girl, smiles brightly always. Her family's shop faces financial ruin, parents despairing deeply. Determined Ashley enters a dungeon to earn money quickly. She vanished without a trace. No Shousi, no answers left behind. The shop stands empty now, shelves bare and abandoned coldly. Her parents ultimately destroyed the shop in their grief. They used that money to hire me, a hired searcher reveal. The elderly parents weep uncontrollably, faces twisted in anguish. Searcher kneels before them quietly, saying, I see. A sudden realization strikes. Something doesn't add up here. A hand clutches a strange pulsating artifact tightly. The dark-haired lead looks back, shocked, asking what it A masked companion kneels, holding the artifact, saying goodbye. A hand retrieves a folded map from a satchel. The lead, injured, collapses while the companion watch. Two sit apart against a stone wall in silence. A hand applies a healing poultice to a wound. The companion, determined, says, all right, and stand. Masked figure, now bandaged, states they are returning. The lead carries the unconscious companion on their back. Lead sighs, accepting the burden with no complaint. The lead looks down with a weary, determined expression. A hand gently touches the companion's side, checking on them. The lead carries the companion through a dark tunnel. They emerge from the tunnel into a stone archway. The companion wakes up, adjusting their eerie mask. Lead recoils, calling the mask unsettling. The companion explains they hide their face for public encounter. Companion questions if such secrecy is truly necessary. The masked figure grins, asking if being discovered is fine. Lead hesitates, unsure how to respond. The lead looks utterly confused by the situation. A thought bubble reveals the destination. Finally, the guild. The lead bursts through the guild doors, shouting for a reward. A crowd of adventurers turns to stare at the newcomer. A dog-like creature sniffs Garen, detecting the scent of death. Nimue freezes as the creature identifies them as corpse carrier. The crowd erupts, hurling insults and driving them out violently. Nimue's mask stares forward, expression unreadable beneath the grotesque face. Garen flinches at the hostile rejection shock written across his feature. Nimue's masked visage looms in shadow, unsettling and silent. Adventurers glare with open disgust, refusing their presence here. Nimue turns away without a word, already heading for the exit. Garen scrambles after Nimue, desperate not to be abandoned again. He calls out Nemus' name, breathless and pleading. Garen offers something from his pack, insisting they use it. Nimue regards the offering with suspicion behind that eerie mask. Confusion flickers. Nimue realizes something important was never communicated. Garen reaches toward the mask, apologizing as he touches it. He adjusts the mask, carefully showing Nimue how it should sit. Garen wipes the mask clean, muttering it seems important to maintain. His eyes widen suddenly. Something unexpected lies beneath the mask. A young woman's face is revealed, eyes wide with startled vulnerability. She snatches the mask back, fiercely demanding its return. Garen stands frozen, trembling at the shocking revelation. She warns him not to soil the mask with his hand. Garen bows his head, stammering apologies profusely. Without another glance, she turns and walks away briskly. Garen calls after her, asking where Shez heading now. She enters a doorway while he follows, still reeling from what he discovered. The scene shifts to a quiet, orderly guild office. A young woman with glasses looks up surprised. A wrapped bundle is placed firmly on the desk. The lead confirms the find and asks to be contacted. Hooded companion presents the bundle to the clerk. An elderly couple waits anxiously, having waited for so long. The father urges them to please confirm what was found. Mother breaks down, certain it's their missing daughter. The masked companion kneels, presenting the recovered belonging. Father calls out in shock and confusion. A strange pulsating crystal is revealed from the bundle. The companion warns them not to touch it. Lead looks on concerned as the situation unfolds. The mother explains their daughter was holding this when she vanished. Crystal is carefully placed into the mother's trembling hand. She stares at it, a dawning realization on her face. The mother gasps, identifying it as a raw mithril ore. Father is stunned. Mithril is a priceless treasure. A thought bubble questions how it ended up in a dungeon. The young clerk packs a bag, determined to retrieve more. She reassures them she'll be fine despite their worry. Next, she explains her role is support, not frontline combat. The parents plead with her to please come back safely. Clerk smiles, brightly waving as she leaves on her quest. A close-up shows the mithril ore glowing ominously in hand. The elderly couple clutches Ashley's belongings, tears streaming down weathered face. A hooded stranger enters their home carrying strange equipment. The carrying device is revealed, a specialized stretcher for transporting remain. Someone outside calls out, recognizing the visitor as a corpse carrier. The parents freeze, eyes widening with sudden understanding. Masked figure tilts their head, confused by their reaction. Gentle hands carefully wrap the recovered remains in cloth. The mother sobs with gratitude, thanking them through broken word. Masked stranger bows their head in solemn respect. Behind the eerie mask, something vulnerable flickers in those eyes. A guild member guides the grieving parents to another room. The hooded figure departs, promising to prepare a coffin once they've processed their grief. A dark-haired young man watches the scene unfold from the shadow. He steps outside, troubled by what he witnessed. His hand covers his face, emotions overwhelming him. The parents sit with their daughter's covered body, whispering, "Welcome home." Night falls as someone calls desperately for Nimue to wait. The young man begs to join another expedition. The masked one directs him to the guild. He shouts that adventurers cannot be trusted. Only this stranger proved reliable. The masked figure suddenly screams in raw frustration. Young man reveals his desperation. He's been searching for his missing sister for a year. He pleads wildly, swearing he'll do absolutely anything. The hooded stranger growls, irritably calling him persistent. Young man gasps, sensing something shifting in the air. He lowers his head, sweat dripping, waiting for an answer that could change everything. Nimue shouts in frustration, demanding attention from the desperate man. Garen prostrates himself, completely bowing deeply upon the ground. The scene continues with the next story beat. Nimue tells him to stop being ridiculous and go home. Garen sits alone in shallow water, stunned into silence. A fist clenches tightly, determination burning beneath the surface. Several days pass in a blur of waiting and planning. Garen returns with a confident grin, greeting Nimue casually. Nimue stands ready, massive equipment strapped to their back. They arrive at the dungeon entrance, Garen waiting with arms crossed. Traces of a campfire linger. Someone has been here recently. Nimue realizes someone has been following them through the shadow. The masked hunter narrows their eyes, sensing danger nearby. Nimue removes their mask, revealing a young woman's face. The woman asks if Garen's daughter was kidnapped from him. An elegant woman explains her daughter vanished on the wedding day. Garen's eyes widen at the staggering reward amount offered. The young woman demands more details about the kidnapping case. A stranger appeared at the ceremony and seized the bride. Before anyone could react, the daughter was dragged away screaming. Private soldiers pursued through the city but failed to capture him. The trail vanished completely at the dungeon's dark entrance. Woman with glasses summarizes the tragic events calmly. Nimue declares she only hunts corpses, not the living. The glasses woman delivers grim news. The girl is likely dead already. Garen recoils in shock, demanding how she could possibly know. Nimue strokes her chin, thoughtfully processing this new information quietly. Nimue asks if the daughter hasn't emerged from the dungeon yet. The entrance hasn't seen her return for 7 long days. A guard reveals someone's been watching the entrance this entire time. Nimue considers the massive reward. High-rank adventurers could handle the. Nimue accepts the job. Garen pleads for her to take care. A voice bids them farewell as the door closes behind them. Nimue declares they should find his daughter quickly now. Garen sparkles with excitement while Nimue looks thoroughly unimpressed. Garen tilts his head, confused by something unspoken between them. Nimue questions why he's still here. It should be obvious. Garen cheers about party formation, dragging Nimue into his enthusiasm. Nimue glances back, redirecting attention to more pressing matter. Garen introduces himself warmly, asking her to drop the formality. Nimue walks ahead, ignoring his 10th reminder to remember her name. Nimue slips into a shop while Garen watches from behind. A sign with scissors and thread marks a clothing store. A cat-like tailor reads newspapers behind the cluttered counter. The creature's eyes snap upward, suddenly alert to their presence. Nimue requests to see new arrivals from the past 7 days. Nimue warns him not to touch anything she already knows. The tailor points forward, dismissing them with a single gesture. Nimue surveys the wardrobe, noting the variety of available clothes. A hand pulls back fabric, revealing something unexpected with shock. Garen examines old clothes, wondering about their significance. Nimue reacts with surprise, while Garen grins knowingly. A beautiful wedding dress is revealed, stunning everyone present. Garen gasps, realizing this dress belonged to the missing daughter. Someone slips away through a curtain to change clothes. The pair thanks the shopkeeper and prepares to leave. Garen calls out desperately for Nimue in the street. Nimue confirms their suspicion about someone being at the shop. Garen eagerly suggests selling the dress and heading to the dungeon. The two walk through a stone corridor from above. Nimue glances back, addressing Garen with concern. Garen points ahead, questioning if they're heading the right direction. Nimue carries heavy gear while Garen suggests staying put for now. Nimue questions whether Garen actually knows where the criminal is hiding. Garen looks upward, claiming they're navigating without confusion. Garen's eyes widen with desperate pleading for answer. Nimue reveals there's an exit connected to this floor. A map displays the dungeon's multiple interconnected level. Nimue explains the criminal inquired about escape routes from the city. Garen's expression shifts to shock at this revelation. Two silhouettes appear in a doorway ahead. Garen calls out. Garen rushes forward, eagerly to investigate what they've found. Nimue sprints after him, frustrated by the sudden chase. Both sprint down the corridor together, footsteps echoing loudly. Garen stares in shock, stunned by the sudden turn of event. A hidden mechanism clicks, revealing a concealed passage in the wall. Dust and debris explode outward as the secret door bursts open. Garen slides through the opening, shouting in surprise at finding an exit. Nimue glares back, yelling at Garen for standing there like an idiot. Poisonous needles line the corridor walls, and Nimue orders him to follow. Nimue swings her massive blade, deflecting traps, while Garen cowers behind her. Her weapon cuts through the air with devastating precision and speed. A stray needle strikes Garen's arm, and he cries out in pain. Nimue stops, resting her weapon calmly as she turns to face him. Garen collapses, asking weakly if the needle actually hit him. He pulls the tiny object from his skin, confused. Just a needle. Nimue's eyes widen. She recognizes it immediately as a deadly poison needle. Garen panics, bowing desperately and apologizing for not listening to her warning. Nimue examines the wall mechanism, searching for the trap's origin point. She explains this is a common trap room where doors open over time. A crude diagram shows victims pierced by needles collapsing as poison spread. Nimue carefully extracts the needle, warning the poison kills slowly but surely. She notes grimly that 2 others likely died the exact same way here. Garen holds up his lantern, face pale with dawning horror and realization. A target symbol marks something important hidden within the darkened corridor. 2 lifeless bodies slump against the wall, probably the missing search target. Nimue tends to Garen's wound, telling him to rest while she works. Garen asks what She's doing, and Nimue replies, simply preparing food. She explains eating when possible is essential, while Garen questions the source. Garen looks back, processing Nemu's harsh words about hunting only the dead. 2 figures huddle against cold stone walls, sharing weary silence. Nimue eats mechanically, Garen watching with quiet fascination. Garen's face contorts with overwhelming emotion, sound effects echoing his turmoil. Nimue suddenly freezes, alarmed by an unfamiliar noise nearby. Garen reveals emergency rations, offering them to the suspicious corpse carrier. Nimue snatches the food, quickly leaving Garen startled by the sudden grab. Garen puffs his cheeks, chewing something with visible discomfort. Nimue questions if eating brings joy, admitting such thoughts never occur. The pair sits apart, intense silence, lantern flickering between them. Garen proudly presents a handmade sandwich with carefully listed ingredient. He boasts about his cooking skills, claiming at least some culinary talent. Garen insists Nimue try the sandwich, pushing it insistently forward. Nimue takes a tentative bite, uncertainty visible in those wide eyes. Nimue's expression shifts dramatically, something unexpected registering behind the surprise. Nimue devours the sandwich ravenously, while Garen asks if it tasted good. Nimue questions why the client specifically hired a corpse carrier for this job. A thoughtful hum escapes Nimue's lips, gears turning behind those eyes. Flashback reveals the bride being grabbed, parents claiming she was kidnapped by stranger. Nimue realizes that story was a complete fabrication, crossing out the lie. The hooded figure deduces hiring a corpse carrier means hiding something from everyone. Nimue's sharp gaze intensifies, piecing together the deception surrounding the case. The pristine wedding dress raises questions. No tears, no dirt from struggle. Mother realizes her daughter willingly cooperated in her own disappearance. A shocking revelation emerges. The bride and her abductor were lovers all along. The couple fled together, laughing joyfully as they escaped their old life. They embraced passionately, declaring their undying love for each other. She tenderly touched his face, cherishing their final moments together. His eyes glistened with tears, overwhelmed by her devotion. She turned away, perhaps sensing their tragic fate approaching. Both slumped lifeless against the cold dungeon wall together. Their intertwined hands revealed they chose death over separation. Garen stared at the bodies, his face crumbling with emotion. They chose to remain together until the very end. A hidden door suddenly opened. Nimue ordered Garen to prepare. Garen pleaded desperately with Nimue about something important. Nimue coldly reminded him that retrieving bodies was her job. Garen argued passionately about bringing the daughter back alive. He insisted the parents desperately needed to see their child. Flashback showed the couple's joyful escape together once more. Nimue's eyes hardened. Wasn't this just parental ego speaking? She declared this wasn't the enemy's sin to bear. Garen pointed, accusingly challenging Nimue's cold reasoning. Nimue retorted that sin belongs to those who sent them. Garen pointed at himself, admitting this was his ego. Nimue demanded he let her do her job properly. Garen fell silent, whispering a defeated apology. Both stood over the couple's bodies in heavy silence. Garen turned to leave, but something caught his attention. A decaying hand clutched something tightly. Nimue noticed grimly. A ring matching the daughter's is shown as evidence. The young companion stares in stunned silence. Someone readies their gear, declaring they should move out. A hand traces the cold stone wall carefully. 2 travelers proceed through the dim corridor together. They arrive at a building with lit lanterns outside. Someone confirms their supplies are ready for the journey. A man gazes out the window, asking about Garinthi. The glasses woman suddenly recalls something important to mention. Young person asks what happened to the criminal. Their eye narrows with suspicion and growing concern. A grimy ring is examined under dim light. A faceless figure reveals there was no kidnapper. The scene shifts to a quiet village settlement. Someone peers through a lens, asking if Nimue spotted anything. 2 figures crouch in the undergrowth, pointing ahead. They search the landscape but cannot locate the body. Information confirms the target is concealed within a structure. The glasses woman warns this assignment carries significant risk. She explains the subject was already dead when found. Documents reveal the body was crushed beneath collapsed building. Monsters have claimed the area surrounding the remain. Adventurers refuse the job, citing inadequate compensation. The request shifts to corpse recovery since the target is deceased. Young person accepts and asks what creatures they'll face. The glasses woman reveals troubling information about their target. Dark-haired man learns their opponent is more dangerous than expected. A goblin creature devours its prey while questioning something nearby. The man realizes they're dealing with a ghoul, not ordinary prey. He questions whether a capable adventurer could handle such a creature. The light-haired companion reveals it's actually a fair ghoul variant. A diagram shows fair ghouls possess superior individual strength compared to regular one. The creature's dangerous ability allows it to split and multiply when severed. They discuss lacking magical options, considering alternative methods like lava or dissolution. Both admit their magical limitations, forcing them to find another approach. Someone bandages a wound while recalling their sister's healing magic ability. The light-haired character's expression grows more intense and determined. Despite the odds, they decide to push forward with recovery effort. The companion readies their blade, prepared to strike repeatedly without mercy. A comedic moment shows the dark-haired man's brute force mentality. A massive goblin creature advances menacingly toward a nearby structure. The goblin's face twists into an aggressive, threatening snarl. Something strikes the creature with tremendous force and velocity. Multiple goblins charge forward in a coordinated assault. The pair readies themselves, signaling the start of their counterattack. Goblins launch their aggressive offensive against the fighter. The dark-haired man surges ahead, urging his companion forward into battle. He races toward a ruined structure, identifying their destination. Beneath the collapsed wreckage, someone lies trapped and vulnerable. The man launches himself toward the debris to rescue the person underneath. Garen's face freezes in shock at the revelation about the lover. A body crawls desperately across the cold dungeon floor. Bloodied hands reach out. Someone cries about missing glove. Garen stares at his own hands, horrified by what he sees. A massive creature looms over Garen, $signs marking its greed. A monstrous face with hollow eyes appears directly behind Garen. Garen screams in terror as the creature lunges at him. Garen desperately punches the monster, fighting for his life. His fist connects with brutal force against the creature's skull. The monster's face crumples under the devastating impact. A massive creature kicks Garen, sending him flying backward. Garen watches in disbelief as the creature collapses before him. Nimue swings her massive axe, cutting through a horde of monsters. Nimue shouts, urgently ordering everyone to run immediately. Garen's face lights up joyfully, calling out Nimue's name. A creature with razor teeth snarls, demanding they hurry. Garen's expression twists with raw terror at the approaching danger. Deep scratches mark the creature's hide. Wounds from Nimue's blade. Garen slides across the ground, barely dodging the attack. Garen screams desperately for Nimue to save him. Nimue stands firm, axe raised against the encroaching monster horde. Nimue declares they're making their escape right now. A massive creature crashes through smaller monsters in its path. Nimue's sharp eyes narrow with fierce determination and resolve. Both characters sprint away as Nimue shouts to run faster. Monsters suddenly revive, shocking everyone nearby. Nimue urges Garen to run without looking back. Garen struggles under the corpse's weight, gasping. Collapsed on the ground, Garen catches his breath. The stench of decay clings to his clothes. Nimue questions whether the damaged body is salvageable. The magic bag preserves the corpse from rotting. Garen sits up, acknowledging this work matter. His expression darkens as he reflects on the difficulty. Garen vents his frustration while Nimue stays composed. A smile breaks through as he thinks of the client's gratitude. Someone proposes delivering the body in person. Nimue explains their policy of avoiding direct contact. Garen presses for an explanation. A gloved hand reaches toward a concealed face. Nimue's masked form reveals their true profession. The masked figure demands clarification on her statement. Garen's injuries weigh on him as he speaks. Relief washes over him as he announces his return. The older man and glasses woman react with alarm. Garen's confusion shows in his simple question. The revelation about the mother shifts everything. Garen's joy at their swift reunion, he carries the unconscious form, questioning their condition. A final instruction to verify what they've found. An elderly cloaked figure stands solemnly against Darkney. The dark-haired man looks concerned, approaching someone carefully. A trembling voice claims something precious as their own. The man's eyes well with tears at the revelation. Relief washes over him as he smiles warmly. He laughs, nervously glad he acted quickly enough. For a moment, he reassures them, saying monsters were scarce nearby. The elderly figure raises a weapon, confused and startled. Without warning, the elder strikes the young man violently. Pain and shock register as he screams in disbelief. He grabs the attacker's face, demanding furious answer. Suddenly, he swings back hard, warning them to stay away. The blow connects. Something dark splatters from the impact. Elder screams about corpse retrieval and their living son. Rage consumes him as he strikes again, shouting, "Why?" He battles creatures while the elder speaks of sacrifice. The elder sits defeated, acknowledging they're outmatched here. He demands release, reminding them of their own word. A hooded stranger appears, claiming innocence in the death. Horror strikes as he realizes the stranger's madness. He confronts the hooded figure directly, tension mounting. Steel flashes as a blade cuts through the air. Hands seize him violently, dragging him into danger. The hooded one commands silence with cold authority, heads hurled backward. The devastating impact leaves him reeling. Heavy gear clinks, axes and rope ready for the next dangerous mission ahead. Garen stumbles violently, pain shooting through his exhausted body. Nimue stands over falling Garen, her massive pack casting shadow. A hooded figure climbs desperately through a building's upper window. Heavy doors slam shut, sealing the escape route behind them. A clock ticks ominously above a flickering street lantern. Garen sprints across cobblestones, panic driving his every stride. Garen collapses against a wall. Nimue asks, "What's wrong?" A ghoul snarls, bitterly blaming them for everything that happened. Garen screams apologies, tears streaming down his horrified face. Garen's eyes widen in shock, processing devastating new information. A lone figure stares through a window, whispering painful regret. Garen mutters another apology, his voice barely audible. Garen's expression crumbles under the weight of crushing guilt. A fist clenches tightly. "That's right," he whispers bitterly. Garen asks Nimue if she's finally calmed down now. Nimue stands alone in the hallway, sighing wearily. Garen questions what their actions truly meant in the end. Nimue explains without Body's death remains merely uncertain speculation. Nimue questions why they accepted such a pointless request. Nimue sits cross-legged, reflecting on how results differ from wish. Name is Boots Shift. Anger won't change what's already done. Nimue walks into darkness, accepting this burden as her job. Garen kneels on cold stones, finally understanding her word. Garen whispers why they never met directly. Something remains hidden. A hooded figure responds quietly, accepting something with calm resignation. The dark-haired man shouts furiously, his anger boiling over completely. He protests that Nimue shouldn't endure such unfair treatment from anyone. His eyes burn with determination. He swears hell definitely get angry again. Memories of mocking faces surround the silent hooded figure standing alone. The hooded companion turns away, hiding their expression from view. Man playfully punches the hood, warning hell. Gets super angry. He shouts at someone to go home, fuming with frustration. Nimue watches silently from behind, her expression unreadable beneath the hood. The man suddenly turns, surprised by something unexpected happening nearby. Under starlit skies, someone asks if Nimue actually laughed just now. Ancient trees loom overhead as night settles thickly over the forest. Two companions rest by a campfire, the man lamenting their empty search. He sighs, deeply disappointed that days of effort yielded nothing. Nimue drinks calmly, remarking that sometimes things just work that way. The man offers food, asking if it tastes good to her. Nimue suggests returning to town to investigate the matter once more. The man agrees reluctantly while continuing to eat his meal. A strange voice echoes from somewhere, catching his attention suddenly. Dark cave entrance reveals distant voices calling out greetings into the night. Nimue and the man stand alert, declaring they harbor no hostility. A voice from darkness insists they carry no weapons. "Please don't attack." The man glances back, nervously, sweat forming on his anxious face. A horrifying undead creature emerges, cheerfully announcing itself as a corpse. The man screams in terror. It's an undead and danger approach. Creature pleads desperately, begging them to lower their weapon. The undead elf asks if Nimue is a corpse collector. Garen stammers in confusion about receiving a request from an undead. Nimue covers her mouth, completely speechless at the situation. The creature eagerly thanks them for simply listening to it. It introduces itself as Femi, an elf who researched magic. Femi cheerfully declares that it is technically already dead. The undead expresses excitement at seeing such unusual corpse. Femi laughs hysterically, noting that corpses normally don't speak. It mentions studying reconstruction theory within healing magic research. Garen and Nemu exchange confused glances, understanding nothing. Garen mutters about elves and genetics being over a century old. Femi chuckles, claiming it was once a famous mage. The creature suddenly demands to know how they arrived here. Femi explains studying magical concentration and ecosystem relationships here. Garen questions if the research caused Femi's revival somehow. Femi explains magic has limits and cannot truly revive the dead. Garen stares at the undead who protests being looked at. Femi recounts being attacked by magical beasts during research. It desperately cast every possible spell before dying completely. Femi gestures at its current broken state as proof. It explains undead are parasites moving corpses without true will. Femi claims it still possesses its own consciousness somehow. Garen crosses his arms, only partially understanding the explanation. Femi excitedly begs them to help continue its research. Nemu states plainly that she cannot use magic for this task. The undead scholar explains they need help retrieving a final ingredient. Creature warns its binding magic will fade by morning. Desperate, the scholar pleads. This research cost everything. The medicine supposedly heals those weakened by magical force. With it, the children's lives could finally be saved. Garen's expression softens as he begins to cave. Both stand before the creature, Garen begging Nemu to reconsider. Garen's eyes widen. Something shifts in his resolve. He turns eagerly, urging Nemu to help the stranger. Nemu watches silently, her expression unreadable. She sighs and agrees, too tired to argue further. The scholar promises proper compensation for their effort. Nemu introduces herself as the creature thanks the young lady. Garen protests the Chunghu while the undead grins cheerfully. Nemu deadpans at their combined volume. Quite the pair. They arrive at a cliff overlooking concentrated magical energy. The creature explains the target plant lies buried below. Garen suggests descending to investigate the area. He turns to Nemu, asking to borrow rope. Nemu hands it over, mentioning she nearly tore it apart earlier. The scholar observes Garen doesn't seem to be lying. Garen grins, offering to help however he can. The creature mutters has been worn down by his own kin. Garen descends, carefully searching for a marked boulder below. The masked elf explains they buried something resembling a tree burl at this location. Garen examines a matching mark, confirming they've found the right spot. A small pendant with an intricate symbol rests in someone's palm. Garen spots a large rock and declares hell start digging there. 40 minutes later, Garen screams in frustration. Nothing's appearing. The masked elf tilts their head, confused by the empty excavation. Garen's shock deepens. Buried 50 years ago. That's impossibly old. Frustrated, Garen insists they need to reconsider their approach entirely. A close-up reveals Garen's eyes widening at something unseen. Nemu calls out, asking what's wrong as Garen freezes with his shovel. Garen suddenly tastes something metallic, his expression turning to confusion. A voice shouts from above. Garen and Nemu react with alarm. A skeletal hand erupts from the ground, glowing with eerie light. Nemus' eyes narrow as she questions if magic contamination is occurring. She explains those without magic get polluted by high magical energy. Garen shouts in disbelief. He actually possesses magical power. Nemu asks about herself. The elf warns she has none and shouldn't descend. The elf apologizes for the danger, suggesting they find another method. Garen's expression hardens with resolve. He refuses to abandon this mission. The elf nervously asks Garen to cast healing magic if things go wrong. Garen glances back, declaring that risking one's life proves what truly matter. The masked elf's face tightens, eyes gleaming with unspoken emotion. Garen is hauled upward by rope, thanking the others above. Garen grips his shovel tightly, muscles tensed for another attempt. A bony hand presses against Garen's back. Something has awakened below. Garen and Nemu freeze as the undead creature emerges between them. Nemu turns away, fleeing across the barren, rocky wasteland. Nemu stands over fallen Garen as the creature looms closer. Garen's face hangs low, exhaustion and pain etched deeply. Garen struggles to speak, his voice barely escaping his lip. The elf warns dawn approaches. This is their final moment. Masked elf demands to hear one crucial answer. Garen asks why they traveled so far for Thea. Nemu sits quietly, struggling to find the right word. Garen admits he empathized with their desperate motives and action. The elf reveals the medicine was meant for someone Priscio. A young elf girl recalls her child dying from magic drain. A sick child lies in bed. The medicine was meant for them. Garen's eyes widen as understanding finally dawns upon him. A hand reaches out, swearing to find what was lost. Nemu stands alert at the cave entrance, sensing something. Someone calls out desperately from the darkness behind her. The undead creature collapses, announcing it has reached its limit. Nimue watches silently, her expression unreadable as it fade. A hooded one bows, requesting apology and thanks be delivered. A skeletal hand offers a scroll. Payment through a friend's promise. Stars glitter overhead as a whispered thank you fades away. Garen stands with his back turned. Fumi has passed away. Nimue perches on the cliff edge while Garen lies below. Nimue pleads desperately. Just a little more time, please. Garen screams, desperately begging them to stop pulling him up. Garen explains he truly empathized with their desperate motive. A voice whispers that these are his genuine feeling. Someone sits alone, never wishing anything for themselves. Garen admits he couldn't ask anyone for help. Garen covers his face, overwhelmed by raw emotion. A dark contamination mark spreads across someone's palm. Grieving villagers weep bitterly over a small coffin. A figure sits dejectedly, unaware of another's true feeling. Garen and Nimue stand before something massive lurking behind. A violent explosion erupts from the ground below. Garen collapses, gasping that this is why he fight. Garen's expression hardens with fierce determination to keep his promise. Nimue shouts she'll pull him back if he reaches his limit. Garen thanks Nimue for her unwavering support. Garen gets pulled up, admitting it's dangerous despite looking cool. Something stirs beneath the surface, eyes slowly opening. Garen struggles desperately, barely able to catch his breath. Garen reaches forward just a little more within his grasp. A close-up reveals an eye wide with sudden shock. Garen and Nimue stand together, battered but resolute. They approach a mysterious seated figure waiting in the shadow. Garen smiles warmly, announcing he has finally returned. Hands carefully hold the precious ingredient they've been seeking. Garen presents his discovery triumphantly to the waiting figure. Garen and Nimue walk away, leaving Fumi's resting place behind them. They agree to head home, exhaustion weighing on their shoulder. A clock tower looms overhead as they enter the quiet town. Inside, someone tends to a hooded figure lying in bed. The elf scholar explains a famous researcher vanished a century ago. A sealed scroll, the researcher's final will, is carefully presented. Image 6, image. The elf's eyes widen as she reads something troubling within. A masked companion checks on Garen, concerned about his condition. Garen waves it off casually, claiming he feels perfectly fine. The elf studies the scroll's contents, understanding dawning on her. She mentions compensation will be arranged and contact made later. A brief farewell marks their parting from the scholar. Night settles over the town as Garen returns to his dwelling. Exhausted, he reflects on the medicine and their narrow escape. A meat pie sits cooling on the table, waiting to be eaten. An unexpected knock suddenly breaks the peaceful silence. Garen turns, wondering who could be visiting at this late hour. He decides to ignore it, returning to his meal. The knocking persists, more insistent than before. Sound grows relentless, refusing to be ignored any longer. His patience snaps as he slams down in frustration. A scream of pure exasperation escapes his lip. He bolts toward the door, shouting that Hez coming. There he yells through the door, demanding to know who's there. A tall, dark-haired elf woman stands silently in the doorway. A nervous Garen confirms his identity, sweating under questioning. Someone suddenly pokes him, catching him completely off guard. Garen screams as Hez violently grabbed and pulled away. An elf woman orders them both to stay silent immediately. The muscular elf effortlessly carries both Garen and Nimue away. Nimue savors the aroma while someone apologizes for rushed cooking. They're dragged through a dark portal, protesting in confusion. A desperate voice pleads from behind a closing door. The heavy door slams shut with finality, silencing all plea. Someone desperately tries opening the locked door, but fail. A table displays herb tea and chocolate tarts offered politely. Garen apologizes, nervously, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. They sit awkwardly on a couch as the elf questions them. The elf sips tea, calmly announcing she has a request. Garen looks bewildered as she apologizes for the rushed hospitality. Nimue directly asks where exactly they need to go. A teacup clinks against its saucer, tension filling the room. The elf's sharp eye gleams with hidden intensity and purpose. A massive whale appears. She reveals they're inside its belly. The whale's interior shows strange, otherworldly organic formations within. A maid serves them as they question being inside a whale. The elf smiles, knowingly asking if Nimue recognizes the name. Garen and Nimue react with confusion to the term grave whale. The maid explains it's a magical beast containing a graveyard. Elf instructs them to bring someone to their buried family. The masked elves face tightens. Fumi's name echoes with sudden recognition. Garen explains corpse carriers don't perform burials, only transport. An elegant elf woman sips tea, mentioning a contract tied to family reunion. Garen slumps back, recounting Femi's dying request to reunite with loved one. The elf woman raises a finger, asking pointedly about their reward. Her sharp eyes gleam. Shall offer everything Femi's legacy is worth. She claps delightedly, thanking them for boarding her ship so readily. A dark-haired man grimaces, recalling how a whale forced his hand. The elf woman teases, surely corpse carriers can handle such rough method. She calls after them, begging them to let Femi meet family one last time. Nemu glances back, asking the striking woman her name. The elf smiles warmly, introducing herself as Muzetto. Muzetto warns them to remember her name. They'll need their connection. Garen and Nemu stand bewildered inside a strange mechanical container. A voice echoes. They'll be summoned by name in 4 days. The floor drops, suddenly sending both tumbling into darkness. They plunge into churning water as Muzetto bids them farewell. Nemu gasps underwater, wondering if diving magic was cast on them. Garen flails desperately while Nemu watches with wide eye. Garen points frantically at something massive lurking below them. A colossal eye emerges from the abyssal darkness, watching. The creature's pupil dwarfs them entirely. Impossible scale. Eye snaps open wider, sensing their tiny presence. Nemus' reflection stares back from the enormous iris above. A massive maw opens beneath them, darkness swallowing everything. Dark tendrils drag them deeper into the crushing abyss. Garen screams as tentacles squeeze tighter around his body. Reality twists into spiraling chaos around them. They plummet through an endless, swirling vortex. Garen collapses face first onto solid ground, groaning. He screams in shock, Nemu sitting dazed behind him. Nemu calmly suggests whale magic caused their sudden transport. Garen stammers, bewildered by their impossible situation. Nemu glares annoyed, head question her composure. Garen turns away, dismissing their confusion for now. They gaze upon the whale's belly, a vast organic cavern. Nemu suggests searching for inhabitants while Garen crouch. Garen suddenly shouts, startled by something approaching. His eyes widen in pure disbelief. A spear violently strikes the ground inches away. Nemu remarks they've saved trouble. Garen panics about the weapon. Armed guards surround them from elevated rocky position. Nemu smiles coldly. Not exactly a warm welcome. A hooded captor seizes Nemu while Garen watches helplessly. The sinister figure whispers, praise calling someone a good child. A goggled madman grins, imitation won't save them here. Garen looks deeply disturbed by their captor's intention. A young man shouts, the search has been called off. Another demands, answers, slamming the table in fury. The man reveals the target has been declared dead. Garen stares blankly, confused by the sudden revelation. The guild clerk bows, explaining corpse, transport, contract. Garen sits alone in his kitchen, whispering Ria's name. His face crumples as grief threatens to overwhelm him. He curses bitterly, stuffing supplies into his bag. Garen storms out, declaring hell, find answers himself. The door slams shut behind him with finality. Hours later, Garen returns exhausted and defeated. He slumps at the table, burying his face in his hand. The kitchen feels emptier without her presence. Garen collapses onto the table, surrendering to despair. A visitor arrives, grimacing at Garen's wretched state. The bearded man sighs, muttering how terrible this eye. He enters uninvited, refusing to leave his friend alone. Inside him, he surveys the surprisingly clean room with mild surprise. Garen warns that Ria would scold them for the me. The visitor falls silent, guilt flickering across his face. He announces he has a proposal regarding Ria today. The words hang heavy. Shouldn't they finally build her grave? Garen lunges, grabbing his friend's collar in fury. His voice cracks. It's already been one unbearable year. The bearded man's eyes blaze. Enough about her. He shoves Garen back, demanding they both move forward. Garen stumbles, the harsh words striking deeper than any blow. The bearded man freezes, realizing he's gone too far. A cup shatters on the wooden floor, fragments scattering near someone's feet. A person kneels, carefully gathering broken pieces while fearing Reyes' anger. A trembling hand reaches down to collect the sharp shards in silence. The person looks down with a heavy expression, guilt weighing on them. A bearded man suddenly turns, startled by an unexpected sound. A wooden door stands closed, blocking whatever lies beyond. The man's eyes widen in shock, his face draining of color. A fist clenches tightly, knuckles white with suppressed emotion. He kneels alone by the window, staring at nothing in particular. A street lamp hangs beside a clock tower, marking the passing hour. A bespectacled woman confirms Shez accepted their request, promising contact in 4 days. 2 men bow respectfully, thanking her for taking on the job. One man grabs the other's collar, urgently asking if Hez all right. An elf-eared man remains unresponsive, lost in his own thought. He sits alone at a table, having waited a year for her return. Dead or alive, his expression crumbles as he admits he just wants to see her, even as a corpse. He slumps forward, whispering that time has already run out. A bowl sits forgotten on a windowsill, untouched for day. He covers his face with his hand breaking down completely. A box containing a skull and bones is revealed. Several days have passed. Hands carefully unwrap a cloth bundle, trembling with anticipation. Two men stand together, one shielding his eyes from the devastating sight. The bearded man stares ahead, hollow-eyed and utterly broken. His hand reaches into the box, touching the bones. This is Rhea. A ring falls into view, gleaming against the darkness. A shocking discovery, a delicate pendant rests gently in someone's open palm. Garen and a woman laugh together, sharing a joyful moment. The woman smiles warmly, the pendant glinting around her neck. She gazes out the window, lost in quiet contemplation. Sparkles dance around the pendant, resting against her collarbone. Garen watches from across the table, concern clouding his eye. Garen screams her name, voice cracking with raw anguish. She rests in bed, smiling softly with the pendant close. A skull grins from within shadows. Death has already arrived. The pendant hangs alone now, its wearer gone forever. Garen stares downward, trembling with unbearable grief. He turns sharply, fury burning behind his hollow eye. The woman sleeps peacefully, unaware of approaching darkness. A woman laughs brightly, a memory that now cuts deeply. A desperate hand reaches toward the wooden door ahead. The cottage stands silent in the distance, holding dark secret. Garen shouts, desperately pounding against unyielding wooden barrier. Tears stream down his face as reality shatters completely. The door bursts open with violent, splintering force. Garen collapses, sobbing uncontrollably into his trembling hand. Someone cradles his face, gently offering silent comfort. The cottage remains still, a witness to tragedy within. Days later, two men wait outside a building together. One man stands suddenly, eyes wide with unexpected recognition. An elf woman appears, greeting them with a calm nod. Garen asks the elf woman about details of the corpse-carrying job for Rhea. She apologizes, unable to provide answers, and he accepts the silence. Garen struggles to express his gratitude, voice catching with emotion. He smiles broadly, clutching Rhea's pendant, thanking her for bringing him home. The elf woman responds with a quiet, solemn yi. She walks away as Garen and his companion bow deeply in thank. A sharp sound echoes through the cold night air. The two men huddle together, one wrapped in blankets, both shivering in confusion. Someone offers them warm drinks, a mysterious kindness in the darkness. A figure smirks, faintly watching them with knowing eye. A thought bubbles. Could it be? The camp reveals itself. Several people gathered around, waiting for answer. Bearded man questions why corpse carriers would be needed here. The younger companion explains wanting to bury the remains with family. An old man with goggles questions if carriers even do burials anymore. They explain this case is special. Identity verification of the remains is required. The goggled elder looks confused, asking who these strangers even are. He warns them that his people came to trick them before teaching anything. The old man grins sinisterly. Caution was apparently pointless after all. Someone mentions this place is a whale graveyard with special burial ground. The elder declares they're the grave guardian tribe protecting this sacred place. He points at their coffin, noting the corpse they brought has suspiciously high magical energy. A shadowy thief runs with the body. Normal burials leave remains vulnerable to theft. Stolen remains get sold for experiments, medicine, and unspeakable violation. The elder explains their duty protecting the whale graveyard from such desecration. Do they understand now? Goggled man questions why corpse carriers would come here. A young person is questioned about their true purpose. The youth argues avoiding combat prevents unnecessary harm. Three companions discuss injuries while one laughs it off. The bruised youth is instructed to prepare medicinal remedy. Goggled man reveals himself as an exceptional pharmacist. He orders someone to surrender their weapon peacefully. Work must be completed before any conversation happens. A group searches a cave, calling desperately for Cindy. They discover Cindy has vanished without a trace. The goggled man smokes, calling someone free-spirited and troublesome. He praises their skills but questions their questionable personality. The goggled man rushes off to search, telling others wait. A man clutches his head, shocked he cannot see. Another man forces a nervous smile. Something feels terribly wrong. A blonde figure with ponytail appears, shocking everyone completely. Someone urgently asks if Nemu is all right. The blonde person's intense gaze fixes on something unseen. Blonde person forces something into the youth's mouth. Someone shouts to stop as the blonde shields the young one. The youth is compelled to eat the mysterious substance. Youth questions if it's poisoned while being forced. The blonde person holds the youth with piercing intensity. Blonde explains poisons and antidotes while embracing them. The goggled man returns shouting, "They're still here." Nimue clutches the small figure tightly, shouting the name Shady in alarm. Her eyes widen with concern as she examines the unresponsive child in her arm. Nimue stands holding the small pharmacist, formally introducing them to the newcomer. She explains this child is an excellent healer from their tribe despite their tiny stature. Someone questions why the small pharmacist cannot speak, noting their strange condition. An elder reassures them that Shetty's skills as a healer are unquestionable despite appearance. The goggled leader orders Shetty to guide the two intruders to the graveyard while the others return. Bearded man grins sinisterly, mentioning he has one final warning for the prisoner. A reptilian eye gleams with malice, threatening death for any foolish attempts to escape. Garen raises his hands in surrender, quickly agreeing to cooperate with their captor. The leader tells them to follow Shetty's guidance from now on, leaving them in the child's care. Garen introduces himself cheerfully, asking to be called simply Garen by his new companion. Nimue introduces herself curtly, still carrying the small pharmacist protectively. Garen awkwardly asks if she might put the child down at some point. They approach a dark cave entrance, someone murmuring apologies into the shadow. Nimue carries Shetty deeper into the cavern while Garen follows, eager to hear about the outside world. Nimue explains she studies magical potions, claiming genius-level talent with confident pride. She expresses her desire to study more outside and become useful to others. Garen questions her ambitions, but Nimue insists her path is the right one. Nimue mentions that leaving the whale would likely face strong opposition from the elder. Despite the obstacles, she remains firm that this is what she wants. Nimue suggests they rest briefly, kneeling down while Garen watches cautiously. Nimue stands before a cart loaded with supplies, clasping her hands with quiet determination. She smiles softly, revealing she met this person during a family funeral ceremony. Nimue walks alongside Garen and the small child, acknowledging the sadness but finding hope in reuniting with family. A dark-haired man smiles faintly, recalling someone he calls a good person. The light-haired keeper nods politely, acknowledging his word. Keeper admits the deceased was pleasant but remarkably foolish. She smiles reassuringly, claiming everything will work out fine. Her expression suddenly shifts to shock, sensing something wrong. The dark-haired man's face contorts in alarm, demanding answer. He collapses face first onto the stone floor, unconscious. The keeper crouches beside him, checking his condition calmly. She sits back, satisfied, murmuring that it went well. Then she whispers encouragement, telling him to do his best. Two figures lie motionless as she asks them to return safely. The messy-haired traveler awakens with hollow, exhausted eye. He sits slumped against the cave wall, disoriented and drained. Next, he hunches forward, staring blankly at the cracked stone floor. He mumbles a dazed greeting, barely conscious of his surrounding. His eyes widen slightly as he notices someone nearby. The keeper kneels before him, asking what was done to them. She explains gravekeepers serve purposes beyond mere combat. The traveler questions her role. She reveals it involves judging intruder. A massive whale looms in darkness, the gatekeeper of this realm. The keeper clarifies she uses magic to assess eruption risk. Traveler asks confusedly what could possibly erupt here. A faceless silhouette appears, representing unprocessed, powerful emotion. The keeper notes murderous intent and vengeance are disturbingly common. She warns that within the whale, such emotions destabilize dangerously. The keeper explains emotions trigger dangerous explosions within the whale. She kneels, asking what should be done after judgment. A dark hand emerges. She speaks of processing dangerous emotion. Garen watches silently, his expression unreadable and tense. Nimue stares intently, her eye wide with concern. She explains hell, wake immediately if there's no problem. Nimue warns that complications won't resolve naturally on their own. Garen lies unconscious, referenced as an example of danger. Nimue questions whether she should process him to prevent disaster. She hesitates, looking down and softly refusing that option. A dark void pulses in Garen's chest, suppressed by willpower alone. Nimue confirms he won't explode now. That much is certain. She kneels beside him, stating he will wake up soon. Someone calls out Namus' name urgently from behind. Garen murmurs warnings are unnecessary. Better not to meddle. A violent shockwave erupts, shaking the cavern wall. Darkness swirls like a vortex, consuming everything in its path. Garen is hurled backward by an unseen, devastating force. His eye widens in terror as something terrible unfolds. He collapses to his knees, overwhelmed by nightmarish vision. Garen's face contorts in absolute horror and disbelief. Nimue leans close, relieved. He has finally regained consciousness. Garen gasps, desperately drenched in cold sweat and trembling. Nimue sits quietly watching him with a solemn expression. She whispers his name softly, waiting for him to speak. The keeper asks if the traveler has finally awakened from unconsciousness. Dark-haired man panics, screaming about a terrifying nightmare. The keeper calmly explains she completed her final assessment of them. She clarifies it was simply a check for malicious intention. The light-haired traveler nervously asks if they passed the evaluation. Dark-haired man grins with relief, glad the ordeal ended. The keeper urges everyone to proceed with the burial quickly. They arrive at the graveyard, massive roots twisting through the earth. The keeper explains this sacred ground holds the traveler's family. Dark-haired man carefully carries the wrapped remains through root. The keeper remarks corpse carriers rarely perform actual burials themselves. Dark-haired man explains this case is a special exception. The keeper questions why they didn't simply leave it to gravekeeper. Dark-haired man mentions there were specific requests from the family. He insists delivering remains personally is the true corpse carrier's duty. The keeper watches as he explains the importance of this task. Dark-haired man smiles, declaring this defines their profession proudly. A foot steps forward as mysterious glowing bubbles rise around them. The group stands within a luminous cavern filled with ethereal light. Dark-haired man marvels at the breathtaking beauty surrounding them. The keeper smiles, explaining the whale has accepted them into its heart. A voice announces the burial ceremony has been completed successfully. A stone grave marker stands solemnly among the ancient twisted root. The three companions bow their heads in respectful prayer together. Keeper asks quietly if they're ready to leave this sacred place. The messy-haired traveler asks what happened, noticing Garen's strange prayer-like stance. Garen demonstrates an unusual hand position, claiming the prayer form differs from what he knows. The traveler ponders whether this gesture might hold some deeper meaning. She explains her elf sect creates pathways connecting souls to the afterlife. Garen's eyes widen. He feels a strange sense of recognition about this ritual. His expression grows serious, lost in fragmented memory. Garen breaks into a warm smile, seemingly recalling something comforting. Two women embrace tenderly, grateful they can finally reunite. A blonde-haired keeper watches with piercing, calculating eye. She warns them to remain cautious despite her seemingly gentle demeanor. The traveler looks troubled, sensing something unspoken beneath the surface. Blonde keeper suddenly gasps, detecting an unexpected disturbance. The traveler admits there was something they hadn't mentioned until now. She forces a casual smile, trying to downplay the tension. Garen sweats, nervously insisting hell find a way to handle whatever come. The two travelers walk deeper into the whale graveyard's shadow. Blonde keeper watches them depart, murmuring how nice their bonds seem. She wonders aloud if she too could find companions outside these walls. The scene reveals the gravekeeper settlement carved into ancient stone. Local dishes arrive, strange but aromatic delicacies from the whale's interior. The travelers discuss the food's complex flavors while eating eagerly. Garen devours his meal with unrestrained enthusiasm, savoring every bite. Villagers peek cautiously from doorways, observing the outsiders with suspicion. A local explains outsiders rarely visit, making the travelers quite the spectacle. Garen wonders aloud whether the villagers will eventually warm up to them. They taste the strange whale meat, finding its flavor unfamiliar. Nimue hesitates, looking away from the cave's exit. Garen asks what's wrong, prompting her to mention traveling. Nimue explains the vast unknown magic available for potion research. Shetty reacts with a surprise sound to her word. Nimue questions why they can't leave this place. She admits she wants to go out, but feels conflicted. Garen directly asks her the reason for her hesitation. The tribe's needs and training are shown as priority. Garen asks if her people oppose her leaving. He listens thoughtfully, spoon in hand, considering her dilemma. Garen bluntly tells her to just go outside. He suggests consulting the clan leader about her decision. A close-up shows Shetty's determined, unblinking gaze. Nimue kneels, wondering if prioritizing her own feelings is wrong. Garen and the cat-eared girl question what's holding her back. Shetty looks on with a serious, contemplative expression. Nimue is offered food, trying to distract from the tension. Garen remarks how the situation has become quite the story. The goggled elder and his group say they will meet again. Shetty is told to contact them if she ever come. Garen waves goodbye, cheerfully praising the meal. Garen and the cat-eared girl depart through a swirling portal. They arrive home, greeted by a woman in a chair. The woman smiles and asks, "So what happened?" Blonde Keeper asks about their companion's decision regarding departure. Garen and Nimue react with shock to an unexpected arrival. The keeper recognizes the newcomer. Shetty has appeared unexpectedly. A ponytail woman arrives, leaving Garen bewildered and confused. Flashback shows Shetty being pushed out during the farewell. Shetty glances back with worry as she leaves home. The clan leader forced her out with a cheerful thumbs up before she realized that Shetty had already arrived here. Garen repeats her words, stunned by what he hears. The keeper tilts her head, puzzled by the situation. Garen examines an object, questioning what it could be. A note requests they care for Shetty. Shall prove useful. The elder laughs off concern, saying things will work out. Garen turns to Nimue, asking what they should do. Nimue studies a document in heavy, contemplative silence. Garen asks Shetty directly what she truly wants. Shetty declares she wants to travel and learn about the world. Garen smiles warmly while Shetty waits anxiously for his answer. Someone gives their consent to the unexpected arrangement. Nimue warns Shetty must prove she won't become a burden. Shetty looks surprised, touched by the conditional acceptance. An elf woman confirms the agreement has been finalized. A massive mountain of crystalline spikes looms before them. The trio stands before the strange, jagged formation in awe. Shetty bows gratefully as Nimue lays down strict rule. Dark-haired man grins excitedly, urging everyone forward. Three companions trek through winding cave passages together. He sniffs the air, noticing an odd smell. The girl explains volcanic gases and rising temperature. Dark-haired man warns everyone to stay alert. He checks on Shetty, concerned for her safety. The blonde companion smiles, enjoying the adventure. 2 cover their mouths, the air growing worse. Someone requests a brief pause to prepare. A companion works with their hands crafting something. Close-up reveals hands carefully preparing material. The prepared item is distributed to cover their mouth. Relief spreads as breathing becomes easier with antidote. The cave opens ahead, promising safe passage forward. Ancient arrows on walls guide their direction. Something unexpected startles the group. The blonde companion points toward a discovery. Shock registers on their faces at what they've found. A glowing crystal materializes between cupped hand. Sudden cold chills them to the bone. 3 huddle together beneath an ethereal glow. Despite hardships, the journey brings unexpected joy. The blonde companion's knowledge earns genuine admiration. Dark-haired man marvels at magic's incredible power. The blonde companion humbly deflects the praise. Shetty explains her specialty is creating healing and enhancement magic potion. Garen asks if using magic differs from crafting potion. Someone notes Garen's cooking skills while soup steams nearby. They wonder if whale belly cuisine can be recreated on land. Garen ponders the flavors, finding them similar yet distinct. A diagram reveals potion making decomposes and reconstructs magic using knowledge. Garen asks if he could learn. Shetty says mana, understanding is essential. Garen grins, grateful Shetty's assistance has been invaluable. Shetty beams, happily accepting his thanks with genuine warmth. Someone notes their burns healed without scars thanks to Shetty's potion. Shetty sips her drink, lost in quiet contemplation. Shetty sits pensively, recalling a troubling moment from before. A scorch mark on Garen's boot contradicts what should have happened. Shetty's eyes widen. Magic potions shouldn't have such powerful effect. Someone urges Nimue to have confidence in herself. Nimue thanks Shetty sincerely for her crucial help earlier. Shetty blushes, sparkles surrounding her pleased expression. A cheerful yes echoes through the cavern wall. The group stares at a vast volcanic landscape with flowing lava. All 3 wear masks. Garen, sensing something feels wrong. A sign announces their destination, an active volcanic site. They review documents. The remains lie near the volcano's midsection. A bespectacled woman confirms the location, urging swift action. She warns the lower levels have extreme heat protection required. Garen pulls his mask tighter, muttering about the unexpected danger ahead. Bubbles rise through the heated waters as coral-like formations sway in the current. The group stands in the cavern, discussing how information gaps often lead to fatal mistake. Masked character's eyes harden as she declares there won't be a second chance. She observes the deteriorating surroundings, noting conditions will only worsen from here. Her gaze turns resolute. This moment represents their final opportunity to act. A dark figure hunches in despair, overwhelmed by the weight of their circumstance. The masked character's eyes blaze with determination, swearing to bring them back safely. Group strategizes about crossing the dangerous gap, weighing aerial risks against distance. They discuss countermeasures, mentioning heat-resistant and fireproof magical potions they prepared. The dark-haired man's eyes widen nervously. Entering magma seems like maddening. Masked character asks to examine the potions, extending her hand expectantly. She inspects the bottle, closely noting she purchased the most effective and expensive option. Her eye gleams with sudden inspiration, ideas sparking like star. Both masked characters stare in stunned surprise at something unexpected. She offers to enhance the potion's effects, holding up additional ingredients, hopefully. The masked companion questions skeptically whether such enhancement is even possible. She eagerly agrees to help with everything in her power, determined to assist. Someone asks Nimue if she can break apart the solidified lava rock blocking their path. Nimue strikes with tremendous force, shattering the rock in an explosive impact. She blinks in confusion. The result wasn't what she expected. A bizarre lava-mimicking creature emerges, its body composed of volcanic material. The dark-haired man admits he never noticed the creature hiding in plain sight. Various creatures are shown mimicking natural objects, bark, stones, flowers, camouflaging perfectly. The masked character offers her cooking pot to Garen, asking to borrow it. She begins mixing the heat-resistant potion with gathered ingredients near the entrance. Nimue agrees to crush the insect shells into fine powder carefully. Shetty instructs Garen to stir the pot and watch for discoloration. The crushed shells are added to the mixture as Shetty directs. Shetty explains mana must be refined to blend with the potion. The enhanced heat-resistant potion is complete steaming in the mug. They realize there's only enough for one person, who drinks it. The three companions stare at each other in heavy silence. Garen volunteers enthusiastically, but someone immediately shuts him down. Shetty forcefully pushes Garen aside, asserting her authority. Shetty declares she made the potion, so shall go herself. The mug changes hands as Shetty passes it to Nimue. Nimue drinks the potion in one determined gulp. Nimue wipes her mouth, insisting this is her responsibility alone. Nimue steps into the scalding waters, testing the potion's power. Shetty calls out anxiously, and Nimue confirms she's fine. Nimue sweats profusely but insists she can endure the heat. Garen and Shetty watch nervously as Nimue wades deeper inside. Nimue's expression falters. Something feels wrong beneath the surface. Her eye widens in sudden shock as danger approaches rapidly. Nimue collapses into the water as Garen screams her name. She gasps. Magma is rising from below, threatening to engulf her. Nimue scrambles desperately as the current pulls her backward. Garen shouts for Nimue to hurry as the water rises faster. Nimue spots the remains nearby but struggles against the surging tide. Garen and Shetty reach out desperately, screaming for Nimue to grab their hand. A hand grips tightly, pulling with desperate force. The ground collapses as everyone tumbles into darkness. Water crashes down violently around the fallen group. Wooden debris splinters as someone crashes through wreckage. The group checks on each other. After the brutal fall, they rest in the cave, exhausted but alive together. The blonde keeper turns to Shady with concern. Shady looks up, shaken from the terrifying ordeal. Someone admits the danger felt genuinely life-threatening today. The blonde keeper declares she wants to continue together. Shady nods, accepting the offer with quiet determination. The keeper extends her hand, formally requesting partnership. Garen grins broadly, enthusiastically agreeing to join them. Hands clasped together, sealing their new alliance firmly. A compass needle spins, pointing toward their next destination. They arrive at the guild to submit their report. The receptionist's eyes widen, reading their incredible account. Masked character confirms their encounter with magma. She questions how they managed to survive crossing it. Garen explains how a companion enhanced their potion. Shetty collapses her body, finally surrendering to exhaustion. Garen invites her to meet again and discuss magic. The keeper responds with a soft, hesitant agreement. A document gets filed with the guild officially. The group departs from the counter, heading toward adventure. A simple message reads "Good work" as the scene transition. The elf scholar writes diligently in her journal by lamplight. She examines the document, her expression shifting to concern. Someone recalls hearing about magic potions submerged in magma. A hooded figure snarls, calling someone a swindler. An older man shouts furiously about their failed search. The dark-haired man tries calming the escalating argument. Hooded one insists they searched every possible location. The masked figure shouts they followed the report exactly. Older man demands results, citing their expensive payment. Someone orders the dark-haired man to search once more. The group argues about payment and acceptance of failure. Hooded figure reluctantly agrees to try one final time. The dark-haired man apologizes for dragging others into trouble. Older man mocks him as nothing but a thief. The dark-haired man reflects that he hasn't changed at all. A quiet exterior shot of the building's closed door. The blonde woman gasps in shock at something unexpected. Group descends into a cave, discussing their dangerous errand. Deep scratches mark the stone wall. Something clawed through here. The blonde woman notes investigation leads to the same dead end. Dark-haired man complains about vague, unreliable information given. A young searcher notes scarce intel means impossible conditions ahead. The determined youth declares the request alone justifies their effort. They rally together to search, but something lurks nearby. The group rests in the cave discussing their uncertain path forward. Elder insists they must accept the difficult request before them. Nimue argues with Garen about their troubling situation. Someone addresses Nimue directly, seeking her thoughts on the matter. The blonde woman questions why corpse carriers face such hatred. Garen admits has wondered the same thing for years. He explains the extreme animosity feels deeply unsettling and wrong. Flashback reveals Garen being scorned at the Adventurers Guild. Nimue asks if he ever sought answers about this prejudice. Garen deflects awkwardly, claiming he avoids getting close to others. Nimue listens intently, processing his guarded words carefully. She acknowledges his response with quiet, thoughtful understanding. Nimue eats Garen's specially prepared sweet travel ration. Despite everything, she wants him to continue telling the story. The narrative shifts to ancient times when monsters plagued the land. Corpses were recovered from battlefields for monetary reward. Those who performed this work endured scorn and persecution. A legendary hero emerged to free the world from darkness. The hero fell in battle, never returning home alive. A king commanded a virtuous corpse carrier to retrieve the fallen hero. The carrier's refusal cost him everything. His family was destroyed. He completed the grim mission and returned with a hero's remain. A terrible plague began spreading from the recovered corpse. The carrier bore the blackened fly-infested body as disease consumed him. Garen realizes the plague makes the town itself dangerously unsafe. The plague spreads, instantly consuming the entire kingdom in death and ruin. From that day, corpse carriers were blamed for bringing disease wherever they went. Garen asks if the keeper knew about Kokatan, the legendary carrier. A shadowy figure claims Kokatan deliberately spread plague to a country he hated. The keeper explains the story, twisted over time. Kokatan became a villain, not a hero. She admits she only recently heard this version of the tale. Garen questions whether this is just ancient folklore with no truth. The keeper insists it's oral tradition passed down through generation. Flashback shows children being indoctrinated with hatred toward corpse carriers from birth. Someone declares the story ends here. No further discussion needed. The keeper warns Garen never to join the Surface Adventurers Guild. Silhouettes reveal adventurers receive extensive education to protect their health. The keeper shoulders her heavy pack, preparing to move forward. She suddenly stops, sensing something amiss in the distance. The keeper turns with concern, asking, "What happened?" Garen and the other keeper exchange worried glances at the tension. Someone admits understanding the situation but struggles to accept it. Both keepers break down crying, unable to reconcile with this harsh reality. The keeper trudges forward under her massive burden, determination returning. They press onward through the heat, breathing heavily from exertion. For a moment, they arrive at their destination. Someone demands to know when they appeared. An older man points furiously, spitting insults at the newcomer. A brutal punch connects with Garen's face, sending him reeling. Garen collapses to the ground, called useless by his attacker. The enraged man screams about being used. Without corpses, there's no inheritance to claim. Older man's face contorts with rage, eyes bulging in fury. The dark-haired man looks down, burdened by guilt and shame. Someone screams at the masked figure, demanding to know what those eyes mean. The older man shouts furiously, spitting insults at the corpse carrier. Masked figure is grabbed violently by the caller, struggling against the assault. The older man clenches his fist, trembling with barely contained violence. A brutal punch connects, sending shockwaves through the room. A hand grips the attacker's wrist, tightly stopping further violence. The masked figure speaks calmly about apologizing for failing to find the corpse. Elf woman with glasses reminds them that witnesses are present and promises must be kept. The masked figure leans closer, their masked face showing quiet menace. A terrifying close-up of an eye, asking coldly if they understand. The older man's face drains of color, fear, replacing his anger completely. Older man is shoved backward, violently cursing in frustration. The older man screams at them to leave, calling them swindlers and trash. Small hooded figure stands silently as someone collapses nearby. The masked figure stares at their own hand, now stained with fresh blood. Blood drips and splatters across the cold floor in silence. The masked figure and dark-haired man apologize for the mess they caused. Elf woman sighs, saying that's not what she meant at all. The elf woman tells them to go home for today, ending the confrontation. A young companion urgently asks Shetty to handle the rest of the situation. The masked figure and dark-haired man are told they both need immediate treatment. Blonde woman notes that Nemu requires magical medicine for her injury. The elf woman agrees to collect payment later as the group prepares to leave. A quiet moment passes as the group rests after their ordeal. The scene shifts to an empty, silent tavern interior. Nimue clutches her chest, feeling a strange, lingering unease. The blonde keeper asks if everything feels normal now. Garen is called over, and he agrees to help. The group sits together, discussing their next move carefully. Garen looks back, noticing Nimu's distant and troubled expression. Nimue remains silent, lost in her own troubling thought. Garen thanks the keeper for her help and kindness. Nimue turns away, isolating herself from the conversation. Garen watches her, a look of concern on his face. Garen excitedly shows Nimue his healed hand, praising magic. Nimue wonders quietly if the plague's victims suffered terribly. Garen laughs it off, claiming he feels perfectly fine. Nimue looks down, her worry not fully eased yet. She sits alone, contemplating the heavy burden of their knowledge. Garen suddenly remembers something and rushes off eagerly. He returns with a freshly baked meat pie, presenting it. The keeper explains preservation magic kept it perfectly fresh. Garen insists they all share the large pie together. He offers the first piece directly to Nimue. Nimue takes a large, hesitant bite of the offered food. Her eyes widen slightly. It tastes unexpectedly delicious. Garen and the keeper smile, relieved to see her eat. The keeper slices more pie, but a distant town bell tolls ominously. Woman nervously explains money was left behind. The masked figure examines the pouch curiously. Money was found in her husband's dug-up grave. The replacement feels like it's taking his place. She explains her husband had extraordinary magical power. The masked figure realizes the body was stolen for power. Blonde woman reveals the body's location is already known. The corpse was transported to a foreign arena. Northwest group processes this troubling revelation about international involvement. Corpse carriers are best suited for this politically sensitive mission. The masked figure absorbs this information quietly. A hesitant voice interrupts the tense discussion. She questions why a high magic body was in a normal cemetery. Her husband wished to rest beside his family. Originally, a specialized mage cemetery was planned for him. She ultimately chose her husband's heartfelt wish instead. Protective barriers had been set around the gravesite. Despite all precautions, the grave was violated anyway. A sudden shock ripples through everyone present. Fists slam violently against the wooden table. The widow screams that this injustice is unforgivable. She explains she was referred to them by someone. Desperately, she begs them to bring her husband home. The widow bows deeply as others echo her plea. An ornate figure reveals this season's Grand Championship prize. Two companions discuss high-quality magic materials with many use. An announcer declares a no-rules deathmatch before a roaring crowd. A challenger barely qualifies for the glorious first battle. A small axe wielder was stopped from joining the tournament. The announcer excitedly reveals someone broke through restrictions to enter. Nimue is introduced as the smallest challenger in the arena. The opponent's arms cannot be escaped. Victims are chased to hell. Multi, the incarnation of violence, makes a terrifying entrance. The announcer mocks Nimue, suggesting she should flee instead. Deathmatch officially begins as the crowd erupts wildly. Multi charges forward with crushing force toward tiny Nimue. Nimue stands calm and composed, eyes focused with quiet intensity. Multi's face twists in shock, something unexpected happening mid-strike. The massive creature collapses suddenly, dust billowing across the arena. A close-up reveals Nemu's foot stepping firmly forward. The announcer stammers in disbelief at what just occurred. Nimue questions whether this victory counts, turning to leave. The announcer watches, stunned, as Nimue walks away casually. Nimue enters a dark tunnel, noting there are no windows. Someone questions whether fleeing before the enemy is even possible. Nimue emerges from the shadows with a determined expression. The announcer screams the winner's name, Nimue, to the stunned crowd. Nimue walks through a corridor, observing the unfamiliar surrounding. Nimue pauses, gripping her weapon with quiet resolve. Garen welcomes Nimue back warmly as she returns safely. The protagonist returns looking surprised and disoriented. They discuss their detention room being better than a cell. A companion mentions overhearing audience conversations during travel. People believe the organizers' claims about buying the corpse. The dark-haired man refuses to believe such obvious lie. He mutters, bitterly calling them all worthless trash. A companion asks if there's any other information available. They discuss how the organizer profits from the tournament. Despite corruption, the tournament itself seems to function properly. Someone claps their hands, deciding to move forward regardless. The dark-haired man grows excited about easily winning Matchy. A serious companion interrupts, wanting to discuss something important. She suggests letting thieves win while recovering the stolen corpse. The group agrees to delay the next fight for investigation. Enthusiastic responses echo as they commit to the plan. The protagonist walks alone down a dark, ominous corridor. She wonders how to strategically delay the upcoming match. Sensing someone behind, she turns and asks their purpose. A smiling, older man greets her with unsettling friendline. He introduces himself as Bardingham, the tournament organizer. Suddenly, he tells her not to be nervous, mentioning a request. His true demand emerges. He wants her to lose deliberately. The protagonist's expression hardens at this shocking proposition. Bardingham smiles, offering money as motivation for throwing the match. She questions suspiciously why she should trust such a man. The older man questions if they should trust him since his competing in the tournament. Young keeper stares coldly, advising honesty will help more. The man pleads desperately, asking what's wrong with them. First battle erupts. Nimue defends while the man attacks fiercely. The older man laughs wildly during combat, enjoying the fight. Blades clash violently as the two exchange brutal strike. The man asks if the young keeper heard stories from their father. Keeper retorts they look alike, claiming their face is better. The man concedes, saying light cuts are fine as the keeper surrender. Grinning, the man promises to cut shallowly, just a shallow wound. The keeper questions why participate at all. Prizes alone seem inefficient. Man calls them foolish, asking if they truly don't understand. A masked voice explains the prize is merely bait for greater gain. The man reveals they adjust outcomes, calling opponents idiots for not noticing. Keeper repeats you guys with sudden suspicion. A desecrated grave appears. Stolen easily by unknown thief. A hooded figure examines the site, noting only amateur barriers protected it. The man rants about severed relationships and selling freely. He laughs maniacally, eyes wild with twisted amusement. The keeper watches through wooden slats, calling it good bizen. A thought bubble whispers, actually hinting hidden truths remain. The widow explains wanting safe burial, but her husband spoke before death. She recalls his words. You must have been thinking about my affair. A hand clutches fabric as he begged to sleep beside her eternally. Tears stream down the widow's face. She can finally grant his wish. A voice questions if everything they believed was wrong. A spiky-haired figure stands silently, processing heavy truth. Violence erupts as someone kicks another character violently. A victim screams in pain, desperately trying to resist. A hand grips tightly, preparing for another brutal strike. A manic attacker laughs wildly, arm darkened with corruption. A bystander gasps in shock at the sudden brutality. The victim is kicked again, screaming helplessly in agony. Blood sprays across a figure's back as violence continues. A heavy boot stomps down mercilessly on the fallen. Another crushing blow lands with devastating, bone-breaking force. A terrified man stares up at his looming attacker. The attacker's eyes burn with cold, murderous intent. A masked figure demands surrender with chilling authority. The defeated victim groans weakly on the cold ground. Broken and beaten, the man finally surrenders completely. Two companions discuss the commotion with growing concern. Both characters freeze, sensing something terribly wrong nearby. An axe-wielding figure walks silently between the stunned pair. The armed stranger enters a room with ominous purpose. Someone inside wonders about the strange noise outside. A worried man opens the door to investigate further. Voices cry out in shock. Nimue has mysteriously returned. Two relieved faces welcome Nimue home with warm smile. A close-up eye asks softly, "Are you truly okay?" A worried eye peers through messy hair. The returned companion reassures them, claiming no problem. A simple tea set and pastries await on the table. The group eats together, asking about the mission. Corpse rests in the lower prize room below. The building's unusual shape offers only one land escape route. They spot a lone guard patrolling the corridor ahead. Carrying the body out undetected proves difficult. The main entrance has heavier security than expected. A hand signals understanding of the situation. They sketch plans on the floor using coins as marker. Someone questions how they'll manage the extraction. Two companions sit against the cold stone wall. One character turns away, having changed their mind. A fist clenches around something tightly. Determination burns in fierce eyes as they prepare to strike. A final question hangs in the air before action. The pair positions themselves near the exit after securing the body. One promises to create chaos for their escape route. Both companions confirm they're ready to move. A determined gaze signals the plan is in motion. The door creaks open with a sharp sound. Second half draws a massive crowd of spectators. Shock registers on a face amidst the throng. The crowd presses together from above, watching intently. A girl with a ponytail shouts, desperately trying to stop someone from leaving. A large, furious man bellows accusations while someone nearby offers apology. A shield-bearing girl faces a hostile crowd demanding to know where she'd been hiding. Voices cry out through the throng calling for Nemu to wait. A short-haired companion decides to intervene, heading toward the commotion. A sharp voice cuts through the chaos, demanding attention. A female warrior offers an apology but refuses to ask for forgiving. She confronts an enraged older man who sneers and calls her a brat. The warrior acknowledges her stature but firmly rejects being demeaned for it. A dark-haired ally steps in, attempting to de-escalate the confrontation. The angry man redirects his fury, shouting at the peacemaker. Instead, he demands they demonstrate their loyalty. As companion, a bespectacled character is seized, crying out in protest. The aggressor laughs, claiming he doesn't target the defense cell. Man is suddenly hurled backward through the air. The dark-haired character straightens his clothes, remarking on the excessive aggression. A woman approaches with concern, asking if he is unharmed. A young person with short hair stammers gratitude, struggling to find word. The female warrior introduces herself as Cinnamon with a warm smile. An older man with a mustache watches the exchange with quiet interest. Sydney and Garen exchange introductions with Nemu formally. A composed butler named Matsu acknowledges them with quiet dignity. The butler presents Cinnamon's business card to the bewildered group. Companions stare at the card, stunned by this unexpected development. Cinnamon reveals her guard work, offering services with a sly grin. The dark-haired man speaks earnestly, calling her a good person. She warns the tournament organizer is dangerous. Money isn't worth the risk. A towering warrior stands ready, companions watching nervously behind. She gestures confidently, quoting wisdom about avoiding unnecessary danger. An older man critiques her refinement while holding a mirrored shield. The group debates money's power, the dark-haired man frustrated. A guard announces the next contestant must prepare immediately. She enters gracefully, requesting a fair fight with composure. The dark-haired man remarks she seemed like genuine nobility. She walks alone down the corridor, tree emblem glowing ahead. There she muses privately. Whatever her reason, she has one. The announcer declares this tournament ends with their upcoming battle. Short-haired keeper grips her staff, surprised by the announcement. She's introduced dramatically, the dragon-riding knight from the northern province. The shield-bearer thanks her opponent, noting the clean victory. She smiles warmly, asking if they'd kindly surrender now. The keeper questions whether wasting energy here serves any purpose. She grips her staff firmly. Surrender is simply impossible. The noblewoman grins sharply, declaring, "Then, let's begin." Both fighters take their stances across the arena floor. The keeper's eyes narrow, calculating her opponent's next move. She wonders aloud, why isn't her opponent attacking yet? The noblewoman smiles behind her shield, inviting her to strike. A boot plants firmly. No holding back anymore. The keeper launches forward, explosively, staff blazing through the air. A powerful strike crashes against the massive shield, shockwaves erupting. The impact reverberates, violently, sparks scattering from the collision. Attacker swings again with fierce determination, refusing retreat. Their eyes widen. The blow was effortlessly repelled. The shield bearer stands unmoved, a fortress against the onslaught. Attacker questions why their opponent want counterattack. The woman declares her shield exists to protect the people. She explains it reflects all attacks, safeguarding everything within. The attacker wonders how she's won with pure defense alone. She suggests exhaustion from the previous match is slowing them. The attacker dismisses it. Just luck, nothing more. She counters calmly. Luck itself is a form of skill. The attacker charges forward, weapon raised for another strike. Steel meets shield in another violent, thunderous collision. The attacker questions her motive. Money drives her participation. She grins widely. Of course, it's absolutely about money. Inside him, she needs funds to reclaim her territory and protect subject. The attacker realizes a fallen noble fighting for survival. She smiles, impressed by his blunt honesty. The attacker collapses to his knees, weapon clattering away. She demands to know his true purpose here. His expression hardens with quiet, unwavering resolve. He reveals simply he's here on a job. A family hired him to retrieve their loved one's corpse. The shield bearer's eyes widen in genuine shock. Her composure crack. Shield bearer's face drains of color. She reveals the corpse was purchased. The keeper stands frozen, staff slipping from her grip in disbelief. Spectators murmur. The arena crowd already knows about the stolen body. The shield bearer stammers, unable to process what she's hearing. Keeper admits this mission is unlike any guard work she's done before. She worries. Her employer claims everything's fine, but something feels wrong. The keeper asks how she can tell the employer is extraordinarily wealthy. Shield bearer points upward, explaining the ceiling's magic stone. A massive composite crystal hangs above. Its power maintains the entire structure. The keeper whistles, impressed by her detailed knowledge. Shield bearer smiles. Basic education for future lords, she says modestly. They discuss the immense wealth required to possess such rare magic stone. The shield bearer quotes the old saying about entering the tiger's den. She politely excuses herself, claiming this conversation is separate from business. The keeper tilts her head, confused by the sudden departure. Smoke billows from the arena's upper levels. Something's burning below. Panicked voices shout from underground. Fire has broken out in the depth. A strange offer echoes. Surrender and help us, or face consequence. The keeper launches herself through the air, staff raised high. Shield bearer screams in protest at the reckless move. The keeper crashes violently into the arena floor below. She shouts desperately, "Throw me upward now." The shield bearer gapes, completely bewildered by the demand. Keeper screams, faster urgency burning in her eye. The shield bearer hesitates, staring up at the chaos unfolding above. Keeper leaps high, spear aimed downward at the shield bearer below. A devastating strike crashes down, shockwaves erupting from the impact. She swings again with tremendous force, her weapon carving through the air. The massive shield cracks slightly under the relentless assault. Keeper's eyes narrow. She mutters how unexpectedly hard the defense. Another thunderous blow strikes, sending debris scattering across the arena. The shield bearer smiles warmly, asking if her opponent is all right. Keeper examines the shield, curiously wondering what material it's made from. The noblewoman explains she protects what's inside. The shield acts as cushioning Keeper. Thanks her genuinely. The shield bearer says helping was only natural. She asks how the test went, noting the shield doesn't seem to have cracked. The keeper grips her weapon tighter. It's harder than expected, no fissures yet. Shield bearer smiles confidently, saying there's no problem then. She explains composite magic stones have high hardness but dangerously low toughness. A crack spreads deeper. The shield's structural integrity begins failing. The fractures multiply, spiderwebbing across the crystalline surface. Massive shield collapses entirely, fragments exploding outward. The keeper's eyes widen in shock at the sudden destruction. Shield bearer points calmly. Just as she predicted, the collapse has begun. The keeper drives her weapon into the crumbling remains with full force. She shouts triumphantly. The structural failure has officially started. Chaos erupts as the arena begins crumbling. They must flee immediately. The tournament organizers' face contorts in absolute horror and rage. He screams desperately. His precious magic stones and arena are being destroyed. Then he orders his men to loot the vault and disperse the crowd. Treasure is the priority. A character breaks down in despair, overwhelmed by low companions, urge escape while danger closes in. An enemy curses, furious at the fleeing group. Vengeance burns in narrowed eyes, forgiveness denied. A desperate cry reaches out for Nemu. The group celebrates their successful escape together. Warrior and companion depart through a portal. Mountains stretch endlessly under an open sky. The warrior bids farewell with a warm smile. Group expresses gratitude for her assistance. She reflects on staying true to her principle. Next, she waves, hoping to cross paths again. The companions wave back as she disappears. Group agrees to head home together. An empty corridor stretches ahead, silent and still. A masked figure emerges from the shadow. Someone watches the intruders from behind a curtain. The hooded stranger approaches the group inside. Hands grip tightly, tension mounting in the room. An older woman's face shows deep concern. Her expression shifts, processing the situation. Someone collapses, overcome by exhaustion. The group gathers around the fallen companion. A pen touches paper, recording the event. A weary character documents everything in a report. A bespectacled woman in a sharp suit dismisses them, demanding a report while complaining about the chow. Back at the safe house, Garen invites everyone to share a meal together. Cinnamon smiles warmly, relieved this request only required her presence. Sydney grins, saying it would be nice to meet again someday. Nemu writes, quietly pondering if continued high rewards might bring them together again. Cinnamon stands tall in her armor, her expression turning serio. A close-up reveals her eyes narrowing with quiet determination. Matsu remarks dryly about corpse carriers and children like them. The butler's profile softens. He thinks meeting again would indeed be nice. Cinnamon declares they should go earn money, and Matsu responds with loyal obedience. A heavy backpack fills the frame. Thoughts drift toward a distant mother. A young person stares wide-eyed, bewildered by something just revealed. Flashback. A child sits alone, reading by a door. Mother was a scholar, never home. Even when home, she locked herself away, surrounded by endless book. Within a week, she would leave again for somewhere unknown. Being sick in bed with only father felt terribly lonely and frightening. The father admits bluntly, mother is fundamentally an unreliable person. A child peeks through the study door, watching her work. The child stands rejected at a firmly closed door. Father looms in the doorway, gazing down at the small figure. His face always carried that same blaming expression when looking at her. He sighs heavily, turning away with visible frustration. Once the child hid mother's research tools, now he searches desperately. He finds something among the books, his expression tightening. Broken glass and spilled chemicals litter the desk. Something precious has shattered. A stern man confronts the trembling girl, questioning her presence. Tears well in her eyes as she struggles to explain herself. A sharp slap interrupts her words, silencing her completely. His hand rests on her head face, hidden in menacing shadow. Wide, horrified eyes witness the cruelty unfolding before them. She screams apologies, desperately, tears streaming down her face. The girl begs forgiveness while the man coldly dismisses her. Small feet shuffle away from the closed door in defeat. She stands alone, withdrawn from any positive involvement thereafter. Flashback shows mother departing with backpack as father and child watch. The young girl watches her mother walk through the doorway. Mother disappears beyond the threshold, their bond growing ever thinner. Years later, the adult sits alone, unable to recall their last word. A grave with wilted flowers marks where father was laid to rest. A voice calls from outside. Mail has arrived at the house. She holds the envelope, wondering if it's from mother's academic society. Fingers carefully break the seal, unfolding the letter within. Her expression shifts to shock as she reads the content. Standing among stacks of books, she learns mother has died. A visceral scream of anguish tears through the silent room. Two companions watch with concern as grief consumes their friend. Eyes blazing with fury, she demands they hand over the remains. A cloaked figure stands in pouring rain beside a massive bear. The bear's expression hardens, sensing the confrontation ahead. Snarling fiercely, the bear refuses. She will not surrender, Watts her. The light-haired character speaks softly, eyes closed in quiet resignation. A skull rests on cloth beside round glasses. A scholar's remain. The character's face tightens, denial and grief battling within. Bear speaks gently, mentioning someone's daughter. Wait. The character's eyes narrow. Something doesn't add up. Massive bear looms forward, glowing eyes piercing the dark knee. A dark-haired companion raises his hands, trying to diffuse tension. He asks the bear to explain what happened to her. A tea set appears, biscuits, jam, and warm drinks arranged neatly. The bear stares wide-eyed at the unexpected offering. Someone spreads dark berry jam across a fresh biscuit. The companion offers it upward. Try it, he says warmly. Bear nibbles tentatively, eyes widening with surprise. Joy blooms across the bear's face, flowers blooming around it. The two companions share a warm, relieved smile together. A bespectacled man peels an apple. The bear calls him useful. The light-haired character eats, asking if they've known each other long. Bear turns away, lost in distant memory. The bespectacled man hikes through dense forest with a heavy pack. Bear's expression shifts, recognition dawning suddenly. The man and bear face each other in the quiet wood. Text reveals Nadi was a woman, a bioma who spoke their language. The bespectacled man calls out excitedly. Kashiu, bear grins widely, shouting back. Nadi, they sit together in the forest. Nadi visited regularly, the bear recall. A bespectacled scholar sits calmly in the forest conversing with a massive bear. She mentions research, piquing the bear's curiosity about her purpose here. The bear's eyes widen in shock at her casual demeanor. She explains she studies plants and ecosystems across the entire world. The bear asks what researching actually accomplishes for her. She answers simply, it helps her understand the surrounding environment. The bear questions whether such knowledge holds any real meaning. She insists firmly that it absolutely does matter. For a moment, she explains that gaining knowledge is the first step toward coexistence. She tells the bear that humans view his kind as savage beast. The bear asks if has somehow different from others of his species. He reveals his family and friends are all the same, nothing special. She acknowledges some bears are indeed quick to start fight. Her hand gently touches his fur, studying the texture carefully. She smiles warmly, knowing each other means they can be good neighbor. The bear reflects that ignorance is truly a terrifying thing. They sit together peacefully, for both themselves and for each other. A skull rests on a pillow beside round glasses, something precious lost. The bear gazes at the remains. She wanted to stay here forever. His expression hardens. He refuses to let anyone take her away. A young adventurer looks up, deciding to consult the guild first. The newcomer introduces herself as Nemu, asking the bear's name. Bear replies simply. Kashiwa, the name of the scholar he loved. Two companions stand at a cave entrance promising to return again. A determined gaze lingers. Protect her until I come back. A bear-like guardian nods solemnly, finally understanding the child's pain. The hanging clock ticks ominously. Time runs out for reconciliation.